Have you ever wondered what people truly see when they look at you? Not the clothes, the car, or the status, but what they see deep down in your soul. Jonathan John Davenport, a man who had the world at his feet, was haunted by this question. And that's why, on that particular morning, he was running through the corridors of his gigantic mansion in Lincoln Park, not in search of a designer suit, but of old rags. "Come on, Daniel, we're late," he called out, his voice echoing through the empty halls. His son Daniel, only 8 years old, appeared at the door, holding a visibly torn t-shirt, his little eyes full of innocent doubt. "Dad, is this game really going to work?" His voice was a whisper. John knelt, his heart tight with love and a strange anxiety. "Yes, it will, champ. Today, we're going to do something different. We're going to find out who in this giant city still has a true heart. But why?" Daniel wanted to know. Couldn't they just wear their normal clothes? "Ah, my son," John explained with a sad smile, "because the world unfortunately judges us by our cover. When people see us well-dressed, they treat us one way. Today, we're going to give them a chance to show who they truly are, without any masks." And then, to Daniel's surprise and delight, John grabbed a handful of dirt from the impeccable garden and began to soil himself, messing up his own hair and his son's amidst laughter. "There we go," he said, a spark of adventure in his eyes. "No one will recognize us." They left the luxury cars behind, taking the simplest vehicle from the garage, and drove to the pulsating, impersonal heart of Chicago. There, in a busy corner near the subway exit, John sat on the cold sidewalk, pulling Daniel close. "Remember the plan, son? We're hungry, with nowhere to go." The first people passed by like hurried blurs. A woman in high heels looked away in disgust. A man in a suit, talking loudly on his phone, tossed a coin without even breaking his stride. An hour passed, and every minute felt like an eternity. The sparkle in Daniel's eyes began to fade. "Dad," he murmured, his chin trembling, "I think people really are mean." "No, son, don't say that," John replied, his own faith being tested. "They're just in a hurry. Everyone has their own problems, their own battles, but keep watching. We'll find someone special, I promise." Another hour dragged on. Coins were tossed without a glance, as if they were a statue, part of the urban landscape. Others simply pretended they didn't exist. Daniel's heart was breaking, and so was John's. It was then, just as hope seemed to have vanished completely, that a figure stopped right in front of them. She wasn't rich nor powerful. She was young, maybe in her early 20s, wearing a blue cleaning uniform and sneakers that had seen better days. Her face carried the weight of a long day's exhaustion, but her eyes... her eyes were kind. "Are you hungry?" she asked, and her voice was the first that truly addressed them, not an idea of who they were. The woman bent down, getting on their level, not caring in the slightest about getting her pants dirty on the filthy sidewalk. "Wait here a minute." She opened a worn, nearly empty purse and counted every coin, every crumpled bill. The total was $14.25. "This is all I have for the next 2 days," she said, more to herself than to them. But then, she looked at Daniel with a tenderness that completely disarmed John. "A child can't go hungry." In that instant, Daniel leaned in and whispered in his father's ear, with the purity only a child possesses, "Dad, she's just like Mom in heaven." John's heart clenched so tightly he could barely breathe. This woman, a complete stranger, had just given them everything. "Thank you, miss. What's your name?" he managed to say. "Julia. Julia Miller." "And you?" "I'm Jonathan, and this is my son, Daniel." Julia smiled at the boy, a genuine smile that lit up her tired face. "Hi, Daniel. How old are you?" "8, Aunt Julia," he replied, already feeling a connection. "What a polite boy. Look, there's a diner right there on the corner. Go buy a snack for Daniel, okay?" "And you?" John asked, genuinely concerned. Aren't you going to have lunch? Julia just shrugged, a gesture of someone who was used to putting herself last. Oh, I'll manage. The important thing is that the child doesn't go hungry. I have to get back to work, or my boss will kill me. But when I get off, at 6, I'll come back to see if you need anything else. John could hardly believe it. She not only gave everything she had, but also promised to return. Thank you so much, Miss Julia. You're an angel. Don't mention it, she said, already walking away. I just did what anyone would do. People help people, right? And with a final wave, Julia disappeared into a commercial building. John pulled Daniel by the hand. Come on, son, we need to change, and fast. In the car, they put on clean clothes, and within 5 minutes, there was no trace of the beggars they had been. Let's go into where she works. I need to see what kind of person she is when she's not helping someone on the street. At the front desk, they found out the cleaning company was on the 3rd floor. Just some quick information, John told the doorman. Upstairs, hidden, they found Julia talking to a large, stern-faced security guard. Please, Mark, don't kick them out, she pleaded in a low voice. It's a father and his son, poor things. The boy is so little. Julia, you know the management's orders. Beggars drive away customers. I know, but when I get off, I promise I'll help them find a shelter. Just don't kick them out now. Please. What if the manager sees? I'll lose my job, Julia. I'll take responsibility. If anyone complains, I'll say I asked you to let them stay. John and Daniel listened, hearts in their mouths, from behind a marble column. The guard, Mark, sighed. You gave them money, didn't you? I did. I gave them all my lunch money for the next 2 days. But what could I do, Mark? The child looked like he hadn't eaten in a long time. Julia, you're too good. You barely have enough money for yourself. And then she said something that would echo in John's mind forever. If we don't help when we can, who will? The guard relented. All right, I'll let them stay until you get off. But if anyone complains, I'll handle it. Thank you, Mark. You have a heart of gold. Julia went back to work, pushing her cleaning cart. John watched her from a distance. She cleaned each desk with care, with respect, as if it were the most important thing in the world. Daniel tugged on his father's shirt sleeve. Dad, are you crying? John wiped his eyes, surprised by his own tears. It's just that we found her, son, the person we were looking for. At 6 o'clock sharp, Julia came out of the elevator, visibly more tired, her uniform sweaty. Even so, her first stop was the front desk. Mark, are they still out there? They are. The father sent his thanks, said they managed to buy food for the boy. That's good, she said, genuine relief in her voice. I'll stop by there before I go home. Julia went outside, looking for them, but didn't find them in the same spot. The concern on her face was evident. That's when John made a decision. Daniel, come on, let's talk to her. They approached and Julia turned, surprised. Wow, what a difference. You're all clean with nice clothes. Did you manage to take a shower somewhere? Yes, an acquaintance let us use his shower, John lied, feeling a horrible weight in his chest. That's great! And you bought food for Daniel? We did, he ate well. Daniel looked at his father, confused by the lies, but remained silent. I'm so happy for you. So what now? Do you have a place to sleep tonight? We're still a bit lost, John continued the charade. I'm from Akron, came to Chicago looking for work. My name is Jonathan Silver. I'm a salesman, but I've been unemployed for a few months. Julia nodded in sympathy. It's really tough, especially with a child. Do you have anywhere to stay tonight? Actually, no. We were thinking of looking for a shelter. And that's when she did something that no one, not even John in his most optimistic test, could have predicted. Look, my place doesn't have much room, but there's a sofa in the living room. If you want, you can sleep there tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do. John was shocked. This woman who barely knew them was offering her own home. Are you sure? We don't want to be a bother. Of course, people help people, remember? And Daniel is so polite he won't be any trouble. The boy smiled, the first true smile of the day. Aunt Julia, you're really nice. How sweet. Do you like cartoons, Daniel? I do, especially Spider-Man. Cool. I have cable TV at my place. You can watch while I make us some dinner. In that very moment, an overwhelming memory hit John. His wife, Lucia, pale in a hospital bed 2 years ago. She was holding his hand, her strength fading. John, promise me one thing, she whispered. Find a real mother for Daniel, not a woman who wants our money, a real mother. I promise, my love. The memory dissipated as quickly as it came. John looked at Julia, who was now chatting excitedly with Daniel about superheroes, and felt an overwhelming certainty. He had found what he was looking for. Ms. Julia, are you sure we won't be a bother? I'm sure, and you can stop calling me Ms. I'm only 26. Sorry, Julia. That's better. Shall we go? My place is a bit far, we'll take the bus. On the ride, John watched her. She greeted the driver by name, helped an elderly woman get off, made a funny face at a crying child in the back seat. Julia's home was small, just 2 rooms in a humble neighborhood on the south side, but it was impeccably clean and organized. I'm sorry about the size, but it's clean and has everything we need. It's perfect, Julia. Thank you, really, for having us. Don't mention it. Sit here on the sofa with Daniel. I'll make some dinner for you. John looked around. There was no luxury, but there was love. Plants in the windows, family photos on the wall, colorful cushions. Dad, Daniel whispered, taking advantage of a moment alone. Why don't we tell her the truth? She's nice. John didn't know what to say. How could he explain to an 8-year-old that they were testing someone's kindness by faking a life of misery? It's complicated, son. We will tell her, I promise. But at the right time. When? The boy insisted. John didn't know. The only thing he knew was that he was falling in love with a woman who didn't even know his real name. 3 months went by. John made up a story that he had found a job as a salesman and that he and Daniel were living in a boarding house. In reality, he spent every free moment with Julia. Daniel was living a double life. At his private school, he was the millionaire's son. With Julia, he was just Daniel, a normal boy who loved her attention and affection. That Sunday, John was in Julia's kitchen, helping with lunch. Jonathan, stir the beans for me while I season the chicken. He obeyed, watching her. It was incredible how she transformed such simple ingredients into a meal full of flavor and love. Julia, can I ask you a question? Of course. Why did you help us that day? She stopped what she was doing, thoughtful. Honestly? Do you want the pretty answer or the real one? The real one. Because I've been through hardship, Jonathan. A lot of hardship, she said, and her eyes filled with an old sadness. I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to have nowhere to sleep. When I was 15, my mother passed away. My father I never even met. I went to live with an aunt who clearly didn't want me. She made me work and took all my money. And how did you survive? John asked, captivated. By doing a little bit of everything. Cleaning, cooking, sales. I lived in shelters until I could save enough to rent this little house. Did anyone ever help you when you were going through hard times? Some people did, yes. Humble people like me who shared the little they had. That's why when I see someone in need, I just can't turn my back. That's why you helped us. It was. Because I know that life can turn upside down in the blink of an eye, and everyone deserves a second chance. At that moment, Daniel ran into the kitchen. Mommy Julia, the cartoon's over. Julia laughed and hugged him tightly. Then let's have lunch, my love. Mommy Julia, John repeated, surprised. He started calling me that last week, she explained, her face blushing. I told him he didn't have to, but I like calling her Mommy Julia. Daniel interrupted. "When you marry her, she'll be my real mom." John and Julia looked at each other, caught off guard, not knowing what to say. "Daniel, go wash your hands," Julia said, still red. As soon as the boy left, they were alone in the kitchen. "Sorry, I didn't tell him to say that. You don't have to apologize," John said, moving closer to her. "Actually, I've been thinking about that too." "Really, Jonathan? These 3 months have been the best of my life, Julia. You've reminded me how good it is to have a family." He was being sincere. Despite the lie about his identity, his feelings were the most real thing he had ever experienced. "Me too, Jonathan. You and Daniel have filled my life with joy." And there, in that small kitchen, with the smell of Sunday lunch in the air, they kissed for the first time. After lunch, they went up to the simple rooftop of the house. Daniel played with a toy car, while John and Julia talked. "Julia, have you ever wanted to leave here? Go somewhere better?" "This is my better place," she replied, pointing to the houses around them. "This community welcomed me when I had nothing. Mrs. Peterson lent me a pot when I moved in. Mr. Antonio let me buy on credit at his corner store when I was broke. Here we are a family. When someone is down, everyone helps. When someone is happy, everyone celebrates together." John had never thought about that. In his mansion, he barely knew his neighbors. "You're special, Julia." "No, I'm not. I just learned that people help people and that money isn't everything in life." Every word she spoke was like a stab of guilt in John's heart. He was lying to the most genuine person he had ever met. "Julia, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" she asked, her eyes full of trust. John froze. He couldn't do it. The words wouldn't come out. "I love you," he said instead. Julia smiled, the most beautiful smile he had ever seen. "I love you too, Jonathan." They kissed again as Daniel shouted with joy from his game. For the first time in 2 years, John felt complete. But in the back of his mind, a voice whispered, "How can you tell the truth without losing all of this?" Today was the day. John couldn't bear the weight of the lie any longer. He arranged for dinner at a simple restaurant downtown. Daniel was excited because his father had told him that after dinner, he could finally reveal his special secret. Julia arrived, and John's breath caught in his throat. She was wearing a dress he had never seen before, simple, but it made her look stunning. "Wow, you look beautiful. Is that dress new?" "It is. I bought it this week. I spent money I shouldn't have, but I wanted to look pretty for you tonight." John's heart broke a little. She had spent the little she had on him, not knowing he could buy 1,000 dresses just like it. "You always look beautiful. You didn't have to spend the money. I wanted to. You deserve it." In the restaurant, Daniel looked around with wide eyes. "Dad, this place is so fancy. The waiter even has a bow tie." Julia laughed. "It is. You shouldn't have spent so much, Jonathan." John took a deep breath. It was now or never. "Julia, I need to tell you something very important." "What's wrong? You're acting strange." "It's about who I really am." Daniel shifted in his chair, excited. "You're going to tell her now, Dad?" "Dad?" Julia repeated, confusion clouding her face. "Daniel, why did you call Jonathan Dad?" John took her hand across the table. "Julia, my real name isn't Jonathan Silver, it's Jonathan Davenport." "Jonathan Davenport? As in Davenport Construction?" "Yes, I'm the owner of the company. I'm a millionaire, Julia." Julia's face turned pale. She pulled her hand back as if she had been burned. "What did you say?" "That day, in the square, Daniel and I were conducting a test. We disguised ourselves as beggars to see who in this city had a good heart." Julia stared at him, her eyes filling with a pain he would never forget. She couldn't process it. "You were pretending? You've been lying to me this whole time?" "Julia, please, let me explain." She stood up, her legs trembling. You lied for 3 months. You made a fool out of me. It wasn't like that. Mommy Julia, don't be mad, Daniel said, scared, standing up as well. Daniel, you knew too? Julia asked, her voice broken. The boy looked at his father, not knowing what to do. Julia, please, sit down. Let me explain. Explain what? That you played with me. That you turned me into some kind of social experiment. I never played with you. I fell in love with you. How dare you talk about love? You don't know me. You know a fool who believed every one of your lies. People around them started to stare, and the humiliation on Julia's face intensified. I gave you all the money I had, all of it. I went hungry to help, and it was all a lie? Julia, you don't understand. Oh, I understand just fine, she said, grabbing her purse, tears now streaming freely. I understand that you're a rich man who had fun making a poor woman look like an idiot. Mommy Julia, don't go, Daniel cried, starting to sob. Julia looked at the boy, and her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. For a moment she hesitated. Daniel, my love, Mommy Julia has to go. But you said you'd be my mum forever, he sobbed. I'm sorry, my love, I'm so sorry. And she ran out of the restaurant, leaving John and Daniel behind. Daniel's cries echoed through the room. John hastily paid the bill and left with his son looking for Julia, but she had already disappeared into the crowd. Dad, why did Mommy Julia leave? The boy asked between sobs. Because Daddy did something very, very wrong, son. At home, Gerald Davenport, John's father, was waiting in the living room. He saw his son enter with a crying Daniel in his arms. What happened? Why is the boy like this? Nothing you need to know about. Jonathan, I'm your father. I have a right to know. Daniel stopped crying for a moment. Grandpa, Mommy Julia left. She found out Daddy lied. Mommy Julia, who is that? John sighed, defeated. A woman I met, a special woman. What kind of woman? Gerald pressed. A cleaning lady, John replied, defiant. A cleaning lady that I love. Gerald's face turned red with anger. You're dating a cleaning lady? Not anymore. She broke up with me. A cold smile formed on Gerald's lips. Good, it's about time this nonsense ended. Dad, don't talk about her like that. Jonathan, you're the heir to an empire. You can't be playing Romeo and Juliet with a maid. She's not a maid. She's the most incredible woman I've ever met. Was. Now it's over. It's for the best. John picked Daniel up and went to his room, leaving his father alone. Gerald stood for a moment, thoughtful. Then he picked up the phone. Hello, Sonia. I need you to investigate a Julia Miller, cleaning lady. I want to know where she lives, where she works, everything about her, and I want it on my desk tomorrow morning. He hung up with a malicious smile. If his son didn't have the sense to end this story, he would take matters into his own hands. The next morning, Sonia, Gerald's secretary, entered his office with a folder. Mr. Davenport, here is the information on Julia Miller. Close the door and tell me everything. Sonia sat down. Julia Miller, 26 years old. Works for the cleaning company Total Shine. Lives in an apartment on the south side. And her family? Orphaned since she was 15, no close relatives. Earns minimum wage, lives with difficulty, but has no major debts. Gerald shook his head in disdain. Perfect for a gold digger. She must have seen John and thought, I've hit the jackpot. Actually, sir, Sonia hesitated. Everyone in her community speaks very highly of her. They say she helps her neighbors, takes care of other people's children when they need. That's a front, Sonia. A poor woman who gets close to a rich man only wants one thing. Gerald went to the window, looking at the city below. My son is naive. He thinks people are good. But I know how the world works. What do you want me to do, sir? I want you to go to the company where she works. Introduce yourself as a housewife looking for a private cleaner. Offer her a job. But why? If she's away from John, he might forget her. But if she's close to me, I control the situation. Sonia took notes. How much should I offer? $3,000 a month. Much more than she earns. She won't refuse. And if she gets suspicious? Suspicious of what? You'll be Mrs. Sylvia, a businessman's wife. Nothing unusual. A cruel smile appeared on Gerald's face. And Sonia, don't mention my name. This is our little secret. Meanwhile, Julia was at her neighbor's house, Mrs. Peterson, a 70-year-old woman who was like a grandmother to her. My child, what's with that face? You didn't sleep at all last night, did you? Julia's eyes were swollen from crying. I couldn't sleep a wink, Mrs. Peterson. I kept thinking about everything. Then tell me properly, you just came here in tears yesterday. Julia told her the whole story. The meeting in the square, the 3 months of dating, the devastating discovery of the lie. He deceived me the whole time, Mrs. Peterson. He made a fool of me. But wait a minute, dear. The man lied about the money, but did he lie about his feelings too? How would I know? If he lied about something so big, he could have lied about everything else. Mrs. Peterson shook her head wisely. Julia, I've seen you these past 3 months. You were happier than I had ever seen you before. And Daniel, was he pretending too? Daniel is just a child. Exactly. Children don't know how to pretend. If that boy called you mommy, it's because he truly felt it. Julia wiped her eyes. But how can I trust someone who started everything with a lie? I'm not telling you to forgive him just like that. I'm just saying that maybe things aren't so simple. They are simple. He's rich, I'm poor. To him, I was just an amusement. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. It was a well-dressed woman. Good afternoon. Do you know a Julia Miller? That's me, Julia said, standing up. Do you need something? I'm glad I found you. My name is Sylvia. I'm looking for a cleaner to work at my house, and you were recommended to me. Who recommended me? Julia asked, suspicious. Sonia quickly improvised. Mrs. Marcia, who works in the building where you used to clean. Oh, right, Julia said, though she didn't remember any Mrs. Marcia. The job is from Monday to Friday, 8 hours a day. I pay $3,000 a month. Julia's eyes widened. 3,000? That's right. The house is big, but I travel a lot. Most of the time, you'd be alone. Mrs. Peterson nudged Julia. Girl, $3,000. Julia desperately needed the money. She had lost her old job because she had missed too many days to be with John. Do you need references? No, Mrs. Marcia already spoke very highly of you. Can you start tomorrow? Julia hesitated for a second, but necessity spoke louder. Yes, I can. Sonia gave her an address in a wealthy neighborhood, the Gold Coast. Be there at 8 o'clock sharp. Ask for Mr. Gilberto. After the woman left, Mrs. Peterson celebrated. $3,000, Julia. That's more than double what you were earning. It's strange, isn't it? Why would someone who doesn't even know me pay so much? Stop being so suspicious, girl. You deserve this chance. Julia smiled for the first time in days. You're right. I'm going to take it. Meanwhile, at the mansion, John was trying to console Daniel, who wouldn't stop asking about Julia. Dad, aren't you going to get her back? It's not that simple, son. Mommy Julia is very angry with me. But you can apologize. I tried yesterday, remember? She wouldn't listen to me. Daniel fell silent, thinking. Dad, why did you lie to her? John sighed, the weight of guilt still crushing. Because I wanted to be sure that she liked us for real, not because of our money. But she helped us when she thought we were poor. Doesn't that prove she's good? John was surprised by his son's irrefutable logic. Yes, it does. So why don't you go to her and tell her you were a fool? Daniel said with childlike simplicity. Dad, if you don't get Mommy Julia, I'll be sad forever. John hugged his son tightly. Okay, champ, I'll think of a way to talk to her, I promise. But the truth was, John had no idea how to fix what he had broken. The next day, promptly at 8 a.m., Julia arrived at the mansion on the Gold Coast. It was enormous, with gardens that looked like a park and an imposing electronic gate. "The new cleaner has arrived," the security guard announced over the intercom. She entered through the service door, where a man in his 50s, well-dressed and with a severe expression, was waiting for her. "Are you Julia?" "Yes, sir." "I am Mr. Gilberto. I will explain the rules of the house." Julia didn't realize it, but she was standing before Gerald Davenport, disguised with a different haircut and prescription glasses. "First, here, you work properly. No slacking." "Yes, sir." "Second, I am extremely demanding. If I tell you to do something 3 times, you will do it without complaining." Julia found his tone strange, but she needed the job. "Third, no talking to the other employees. Here, you work in silence." "Understood." Gerald showed her the house. 12 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, 3 living rooms. It was bigger than any place she had ever worked. "Start with the dining room. I want everything sparkling." Julia got to work. She cleaned the immense mahogany table, wiped down each of the ornate chairs, and organized the china cabinet. An hour later, Gerald returned. "What kind of shoddy cleaning is this?" he growled. "Look here, a tiny spot. It was a microscopic mark, almost invisible. I'm sorry, Mr. Gilberto. I'll clean it again." "You're supposed to do it right the first time. Do it all over again." Julia redid the entire cleaning. Another hour of work. Gerald returned and found another flaw. "The chairs are not perfectly aligned, and I see dust on the chandelier. But I cleaned the chandelier, sir. Are you contradicting me?" "No, sir, I'm sorry." Julia cleaned everything for the 3rd time. Her back already ached, and it was only 10 a.m. At lunchtime, he sent her to eat in the service area. "The staff's food is in the fridge. You have 15 minutes. She found only a simple sandwich and some juice. She ate quickly and went back to work. In the afternoon, the humiliation continued. "Julia, I dropped a plate in the kitchen." "Clean that up." In the kitchen, there was food scattered all over the floor. It was obvious it had been thrown there on purpose. "Clean it properly. I don't want to see a single crumb." Julia bent down and cleaned everything, while Gerald watched her with a cruel smile. "People like you were born to serve people like us, weren't you?" he said, low enough for only her to hear. Julia stopped, cloth in hand, and looked at him. "What did you say, sir?" "Nothing. Keep cleaning." On the bus home, she called Mrs. Peterson. "How was your first day, dear?" "Difficult. The boss is very, very demanding. But it's okay, right? For that salary, it's worth putting up with." "Yes, I guess so." But Julia had a terrible feeling. On the second day, Gerald's persecution intensified. "The master suite bathroom is a pigsty. Go up there and make it shine." Julia went upstairs and found a perfectly clean bathroom, but she did the job anyway. As she was finishing, Gerald walked in with muddy shoes and stepped all over the wet floor. "Look at this mess. Do it again." "But you just dirtied it." "Are you accusing me of something?" Julia took a deep breath. "No, sir. I'll clean it." On the 3rd day, it was even worse. "Today, I want all the windows in the house washed inside and out." There were over 50 windows. Julia worked under the hot sun. In the middle of the afternoon, as she was finishing a section, Gerald deliberately threw a bucket of dirty water on one of the clean windows. "Oops, how careless of me. You'll have to wash it again." Julia looked at him, tears of frustration and anger burning in her eyes, but said nothing. "What's the problem? People of your kind can't complain about an honest job." She clenched her fists but continued. She needed the money. "In a week," Gerald thought to himself, "she'll be so broken she won't even remember my son." At the end of that day, Julia arrived home destroyed. "Girl, what is it? You look terrible." "Mrs. Peterson, that man is not normal. He humiliates me all day long." "Oh dear, every rich boss is a bit eccentric. You have to endure it." "It's not just eccentric. It's as if he takes pleasure in seeing me suffer." She had no idea how right she was. A week went by. Julia was cleaning the living room when something on a small side table caught her eye. It was a picture frame, a photo of a little boy about 5 years old with curly hair and a mischievous smile. She picked up the photo and her heart stopped. It was Daniel. "Found something interesting?" A cold voice sounded from the doorway. Julia turned, startled. Gerald was standing there, a blatantly malicious smile on his face. "This child, I know him." "You do?" Gerald entered the room, savoring the moment. "Interesting. Where do you know my grandson from?" "Your grandson?" Julia's legs gave way. "You are Gerald Davenport, John's father." "A pleasure to meet you officially, Miss Miller." Julia dropped the picture frame on the rug. "You knew? The whole time?" "Of course I knew. Do you think it was a coincidence that I hired you?" "But why?" "Because I wanted you to know your place in this world," he said, approaching her intimidatingly. "My son was deluded by you, but I know exactly what you are. An opportunist who saw a rich man and thought you'd hit the jackpot." "That's not true," she stammered. "Isn't it? Then why did you accept a job here for $3,000? Why didn't you refuse when I offered far more than you're worth?" Julia was speechless. "That's what I thought. You're just like all the others. All you think about is money. You don't know me. I know your type very well. My son is naive, but I know how the world works." At that very moment, the front door burst open. John entered, his voice full of urgency. "Dad, I need to talk to you about Julia." He stopped in the middle of the room, his jaw dropping, shocked to see Julia there, dressed in a cleaning uniform. "Julia, what are you doing here?" "Working for your father," she replied, her voice filled with hurt and humiliation. "Where else would a cleaning lady be?" "Son," Gerald said theatrically, "this is Julia, an excellent, very dedicated employee." John looked from his father to Julia, confusion and horror etched on his face. "Dad, did you know it was her?" "Of course, and I hired her precisely for that reason." "What do you mean?" "Because I wanted to show both of you what her place is in our family." Julia picked up her bucket and cloth. "If you'll excuse me, I need to finish my work." "Julia, wait!" John tried to stop her. "We have nothing to talk about, sir. You already said everything you thought at the restaurant." "But I can explain." "Explain what? That you brought me to your father's house to humiliate me even more? To rub it in my face that I'm just a maid? I didn't know you were working here." "I swear, you didn't know." Julia laughed, a bitter, humorless laugh. "Of course not. Why would a millionaire care what happens to a poor cleaning lady?" Gerald watched the scene, satisfied. "Julia," John tried to get closer, "please listen to me." "No," she stepped back. "I've heard enough. I listened to your lies for 3 months, not anymore. Now I know my place. Your father made it very clear." She marched towards the kitchen. John followed her. "What my father thinks doesn't represent what I think, doesn't it? Then why didn't you say anything when he said my place is to serve you?" John was speechless. "That's what I thought." Julia shook her head. "You two are the same." "We are not." "Yes, you are. The only difference is that your father, at least, is honest about his prejudice." Julia gathered her things and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" "Away. I'm not staying here another second to be humiliated by you." "What about the job?" Julia stopped at the door and looked at John over her shoulder. "You can keep your job. I may be poor, but I still have my dignity." And she slammed the door hard. John stood in the room facing his father. "You see," said Gerald, "I told you she only wanted money. At the first sign of trouble, she abandoned ship. You did this on purpose." "I did, and I'd do it again. Now you've seen her true character." John looked at his father with a disgust he had never felt before. "The only character I saw here was yours, humiliating an honest, hard-working woman." "Jonathan, I don't want to talk about this anymore." John turned and left, leaving Gerald alone in the immense, satisfyingly empty room. He was certain that now Julia would never want anything to do with his son again. In the days that followed, Gerald put the second part of his plan into action. He knew John still loved Julia and might try to win her back. He needed to plant poison on both sides. He went to the south side, parked his luxury car a few blocks away, and walked to Julia's house. "Julia, I'm Gerald Davenport." She opened the door, her expression closed. "What do you want here?" "I want to talk. May I come in?" "You can speak from there." "I came to warn you about something important." Julia crossed her arms. "What is it?" "My son is engaged to Helen Davies. They're getting married in December." Julia felt a sharp pang in her chest, but she tried not to show it. "And what does that have to do with me?" "Nothing. I just thought you should know, so you don't get your hopes up." Gerald took out his phone and showed her some photos. They were images of John with a beautiful blonde woman at social events. "These pictures are from last night. They went to a restaurant opening together." Julia looked at the photos. John was smiling next to the woman. They looked comfortable. "As I said, this was just so you wouldn't delude yourself." "I'm not deluded about anything." "Excellent. Then we understand each other." Gerald left, leaving Julia completely devastated. She had no way of knowing that those photos were from 2 years ago, before she had even met John. That same day, Gerald went to see his son at the company. "Son, I need to talk to you about that." "Cleaning lady." "I don't want to talk about Julia, Dad. But you need to know something. She's been spreading around that you two dated." John looked up from his paperwork. "What?" "She's telling people you promised to marry her. She's using your name to get things." "What kind of things?" "Loans, buying on credit at the market. I'm getting calls from people demanding payment for debts she made in your name." John frowned. "I don't believe she would do that." "Jonathan, you're naive. She saw an opportunity and is taking advantage of it." Gerald placed some papers on his son's desk. "Look here, 3 loan applications in your name. She forged your signature." The papers were fake, but John didn't know that. "She said you were going to get married and that you would pay for everything later." John picked up the documents, incredulous. "No, I don't believe it." "Well, believe it. And there's more. She's telling the neighbors that you're the father of the child she's expecting." "What child?" John turned pale. "She's pregnant, Jonathan, and she's spreading the word that the child is yours." "Pregnant?" He sat down, shocked. "Yes, but don't worry. I've already had it investigated. The father is some guy she was seeing before she met you." "Now, do you understand why I didn't want you to get involved? People like that only bring trouble." "I can't believe it," John whispered. "Jonathan, you met her when you were pretending to be poor. Now, she's trying to profit from it." John was confused. On one hand, his heart refused to believe it. On the other, the evidence seemed convincing. "What do I do, Dad?" "Nothing. Ignore her completely. Soon she'll get tired and find another fool to deceive." Meanwhile, Julia was confiding in Mrs. Peterson. "He showed me pictures, Mrs. Peterson, of John with a beautiful blonde woman. They're getting married in December." "Oh, my dear, how sad." "I knew it," Julia laughed, a bitter laugh. "Rich men don't marry cleaning ladies." "But you said he loved you." "Love?" She repeated the word with disdain. "He was just having fun. Now he's back to his own world." "What if you went to talk to him, explain your side?" "There's no side to explain. He lied, I found out. It's over." Julia wiped her eyes angrily. "It's for the best. I would never fit into his world." "Don't talk like that, dear. It's the truth. I'm a cleaning lady. He's a millionaire. Stories like ours don't happen in the real world." Julia had no idea that John was suffering just as much as she was, and that all this pain was orchestrated by cruel lies. Gerald's plan was working perfectly. 2 weeks later, Gerald realized his plan was not yet complete. John was still sad, asking employees about Julia. Daniel wouldn't stop crying, asking for Mommy Julia. "I need to deliver a final blow," he thought. "Something that will make John truly hate her." He called Sonia. "I need one more favor." What is it, sir? I want you to find Julia again, make up some story and bring her here. She won't want to come back. Yes, she will. Offer her $5,000 for a weekend cleaning job. A poor woman won't refuse money. On Saturday, Sonia rang Julia's doorbell. Julia, it's me, Sylvia. Remember me? Julia opened the door, suspicious. What do you want? I have a proposal, a weekend job, $5,000 for 2 days. Julia's eyes widened. 5,000. Yes? My husband is having a party on Monday. I need the house to be spotless. Julia hesitated. She knew it was risky, but $5,000 was a fortune. What kind of work? General cleaning, polishing the silverware, the crystal, organizing everything. It's heavy work, but it pays well. And will Mr. Gilberto be there? No, he's out of town. It will just be you and me in the house. Julia took a deep breath. I accept. On Saturday morning, Julia arrived at the mansion. Sonia showed her what needed to be done. Start with the dining room, then the living room. Mr. Gilberto wants everything perfect. I thought he was out of town. He is, but he left instructions. Julia began to work. She cleaned the entire room, polished every silver object, and organized the crystal. In the middle of the afternoon, Sonia simply disappeared without a word. Julia continued alone. At 5 o'clock, Gerald appeared in the room. He was holding a very expensive gold watch. Julia, I'm glad you came. She tensed up. I thought you were out of town. Change of plans. I came to pick up a few things. Gerald placed the watch on the table and left. Keep working. Don't mind me. Julia finished the room and went to get more supplies from the kitchen. When she returned, the watch was no longer on the table. Strange, she thought. He must have taken it. At 6, as Julia was finishing up, Gerald returned, accompanied by John. Son, I came to show you something important. John entered and saw Julia, his face transformed. Julia, what are you doing here? Working. Mrs. Sylvia hired me for a special cleaning. What, Mrs. Sylvia? He started to ask. Gerald interrupted him. That's not why I called you. Look at Julia, he said, feigning concern. Julia, where is the watch I left on this table? What watch, sir? A gold watch I placed right here before I left. Very valuable. I don't know. When I came back from the kitchen, it wasn't here anymore. Interesting, Gerald pretended to think, seeing as it was only you and me in this house. Julia started to get nervous. Are you implying that I took it? I'm not implying anything. I'm just stating a fact. The watch is missing. John watched the scene, not understanding. May I search your bag? Gerald asked. You can. Search everything. Julia took her bag and threw it on the table. You can look. Gerald opened the bag, rummaged through her things, and then, triumphantly, pulled out the gold watch. Look what I found. Julia was paralyzed. I didn't put that in there. Someone else did. Oh, really? And who would that be? Me? Gerald feigned outrage. Why would I do something like that? John looked from the watch in his father's hand to Julia's pale face. Julia, how did this watch end up in your bag? I don't know, John. I swear I didn't take it. Jonathan, Gerald said with a sad voice, I'm sorry you have to see this, but now you know who she really is. I didn't steal anything, Julia shouted. He set this whole thing up. John looked into Julia's eyes. For a second he hesitated, but the weeks of lies and his father's proof had taken their toll. Julia, I'm so disappointed. I really thought you were different. John, do you really believe I would do this? The proof is right here, Julia. She felt her world collapse. So that's it. After everything we've been through, you believe your father and not me. Julia, it's not... You don't need to say another word. She cut him off, her voice as cold as ice. I understand everything now. Julia gathered her things and headed for the door. Where are you going? Away, and this time it's for good. She left, slamming the door with a force that made the walls tremble. John stood there looking at his father. "Son, I know it's hard, but it was better to find out the truth now. She seemed so sincere. People like that are good at pretending. That's why I warned you from the beginning." John shook his head, confused and heartbroken. "Come on, let's go," Gerald said, putting a hand on his son's shoulder. "Tomorrow we'll buy Daniel a new phone. It will help distract him." They left the room. Hidden, Gerald smiled. His plan had worked perfectly. Now John would never want to see Julia again in his life. Outside the mansion, Julia walked aimlessly, crying. She felt she had lost everything, the love of her life and her faith in a world where she believed good always triumphed. But what she didn't know was that an 8-year-old child had heard everything, hidden at the top of the stairs. And Daniel Davenport had just discovered that his grandfather was a very, very bad person. A month had passed since the watch setup, and Julia's life had become a nightmare. Gerald had spread the word all over the city that she was a thief. No cleaning company would hire her. "I'm sorry, Julia, but I can't give you the job," said Mr. Ronaldo, the owner of a small company. "I received a call saying you have a habit of stealing from your employers." "But Mr. Ronaldo, you've known me for years." "I have, but I can't risk my company's reputation." She left there devastated. It was the 5th company to reject her that week. At home, Mrs. Peterson was growing more concerned. "Girl, you're not eating properly. You're getting too thin." "I'm not hungry, Mrs. Peterson." "How can you not be? You've barely touched your food in days." Julia could only find odd cleaning jobs for $15 or $20, barely enough to buy food. "Mrs. Peterson, I think I'm going to have to go back to my hometown." "What do you mean?" "I can't find work here in Chicago anymore. I'm going to have to leave." "But girl, your life is here." "What life? No one will give me a job. I'm struggling." Suddenly, Julia felt a sharp pain in her stomach and became dizzy. Mrs. Peterson rushed to support her. "Julia, what was that?" "I'm a little dizzy." "It must be from hunger." But the dizziness didn't pass. Julia fainted on the sofa. "Help! Somebody help me!" the neighbor shouted. At the health clinic, the doctor examined her. "Ms. Miller, when was your last period?" "About 2 months ago, doctor. But it must be because of the stress. I'm going to order a blood test. Based on your symptoms, you might be pregnant." An hour later, the result was confirmed. Julia was 1 month pregnant. "Doctor, are you sure?" "Absolutely. Congratulations." Julia didn't know whether to cry with joy or despair. She was pregnant with John's child, but he hated her. "Doctor, what if I can't afford to raise this child?" "You need to eat properly. The baby needs nutrients." "But I don't have any money." "The public health system covers prenatal care, but your diet needs to improve urgently." Julia returned home with the test results in her hand. "So, what did the doctor say?" Mrs. Peterson asked anxiously. "I'm pregnant, Mrs. Peterson. Pregnant with John's child." "It has to be his." Mrs. Peterson hugged Julia tightly. "What a joy, my child. I'm going to be a foster grandmother. But Mrs. Peterson, how am I going to raise a child like this? I barely have enough to eat." "We'll manage, girl. We always manage." "But now it's different. It's an innocent child." Julia looked at the test results. "How am I going to tell John? He hates me. He'll think I'm making this up just to get his money." She put the test away. "No one can know about this, at least not for now." Meanwhile, at the mansion, John was trying to deal with Daniel's sadness. The boy had gotten a new phone, but he remained apathetic. "Dad, why doesn't Mommy Julia visit us anymore?" "Son, we've already talked about this. Mommy Julia isn't coming back." "But why?" "She was so nice." "It's complicated, Daniel. Sometimes people aren't who they seem to be." "But I'm sure she's good," the boy insisted. "Dad, I'm going to call her on my new phone." "No," John said, louder than he intended. "You are not going to call her." Daniel flinched, startled. "I'm sorry, son. I didn't mean to yell. But it's better if we forget about Mommy Julia." "I'll never forget," Daniel whispered, grabbing his phone and running off. In the hallway, he bumped into his grandfather. "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" "I'm sad, Grandpa." "Why?" "Because of Mommy Julia. Dad said she's not coming back." Gerald knelt, placing his hands on his grandson's shoulders. "It's for the best, Daniel. She was no good." "What do you mean?" "She was a bad person. She tried to steal from our house." Daniel frowned. "I don't believe it. She was always good to me." "Sometimes people pretend to be good, my grandson." "That's not true," Daniel shouted and ran to his room. Upset, he started playing with his new phone and discovered he could record audio. "Cool. I'm going to record myself singing." He spent the afternoon recording everything, his own voice, the sounds of the house, the servants' conversations. Daniel didn't know it, but he had just discovered a powerful weapon against his grandfather. 2 weeks later, Julia, now 2 months pregnant, was working, hiding her belly as best she could, but the morning sickness was constant. That day, she was cleaning the house of Mrs. Carmen, a kind elderly lady. "Julia, are you okay? You look a bit pale." "I'm fine, Mrs. Carmen, just a little tired." In the middle of cleaning, Julia felt a strong wave of nausea and ran to the bathroom. Mrs. Carmen followed her. "My dear, what was that?" "It must have been something I ate." "Julia, can I ask you a question?" "You can. Are you pregnant?" Julia hesitated, but Mrs. Carmen had always been good to her. "Yes, I am. 2 months." "What a joy. And the father?" "He doesn't know, and he won't." "What do you mean? Why?" "It's complicated, Mrs. Carmen. We had a fight. He doesn't want to see me anymore. He would think it's a lie just to get money." Mrs. Carmen grew worried. "Julia, are you eating properly?" "I'm trying." "Trying nothing. You're too thin. Come with me to the kitchen." She prepared a plate of food for Julia. "Eat everything, and take this container home with you." "You don't have to, Mrs. Carmen." "Yes, I do. And from now on, you'll have lunch here every time you come to work." Julia was moved. "Thank you so much." "You're welcome, dear. Women have to help women." That same day, in the garden of the Davenport mansion, Daniel overheard his grandfather talking on the phone on the porch. Thinking no one was listening, Gerald's voice was cold and calculating. "Hello, Ricardo? It's me. It's about that cleaning lady. No, you can't give her a job under any circumstances, because she steals, that's why. It's not a rumor. I saw it with my own eyes." Hidden behind a tree, Daniel heard everything. "Spread the word to everyone you know. This woman can't get a job anywhere. She tried to take advantage of my son." "Exactly. A gold digger. If anyone asks, say she stole a watch from our house. It's not a lie. Well, it's not a complete lie." Daniel pulled out his phone and with trembling hands started recording. "The important thing is to keep her away from John. I can't let my son get involved with people of that class. I need to protect my family from this opportunist." Daniel recorded everything. He didn't fully understand, but he knew his grandfather was being cruel and unfair. When Gerald hung up, Daniel ran to his room. "I'm going to show this to Dad." But when he went to look for his father, he found him talking with Gerald in the living room. "Jonathan, you need to stop being depressed over that woman." "Dad, I loved her." "You loved a lie. She only wanted your money." Daniel stopped at the door, listening. He decided not to show the recording yet. "I want to understand better," he thought. "I don't want to meet Helena, Dad, or anyone else." "Jonathan, you have responsibilities. You can't be moping around because of a cleaning lady." "She wasn't just a cleaning lady. She was what? A gold digger." Daniel clutched the phone in his hand. He was recording that conversation too. "Dad, sometimes I think you exaggerated. Maybe Julia didn't steal the watch. How could she not? I took the watch out of her bag in front of you. I know, but it seemed a bit strange. Strange how? Are you doubting me? No. It's just that... It's nothing. I'm your father, and I only want what's best for you. Daniel recorded everything and slipped away. In his room, he listened to the recordings again. Grandpa is lying to Dad and spreading lies about Mommy Julia. Daniel didn't know what to do. He was just a child against a powerful adult, but one thing he knew, Mommy Julia was good, and she didn't deserve this. I'm going to find out more, and I'm going to prove that Grandpa is a liar. Daniel put his phone away. His secret mission had begun. 2 months went by, and Daniel's sadness only grew. He wasn't eating properly, wasn't playing, and spent all his time locked in his room. Daniel, what's wrong? You've been so strange, John asked, worried. Nothing, Dad. What do you mean, nothing? You've barely left your room this week. I'm just playing on my phone. But son, kids need to run, play ball. I don't feel like it. John sat on the bed next to him. Daniel, are you still thinking about Mommy Julia? The boy's eyes filled with tears. I always think about her? Son, we've already talked about this. Dad, what if she didn't steal anything? What do you mean? What if Grandpa was mistaken? John was surprised. Why are you saying that? I don't know. It's just a question. Daniel, your grandfather saw the watch in her bag, but what if someone put the watch there? Son, who would do something like that? Daniel almost told the truth, but he held back. It wasn't time yet. I don't know. I was just imagining. John hugged his son. I know you liked her very much. I did too, but sometimes people disappoint us. Dad, do you still love her? Daniel asked, looking deep into his father's eyes. John hesitated. It's complicated. Do you love her or not? Tell the truth. He sighed. I do. Yes, even after knowing everything, I still love her. Daniel's face lit up. Then why don't you go after her? Because I can't anymore, son. Too much has happened. But if you love each other, she doesn't love me anymore. Not after everything. Daniel hugged his father tightly. Dad, I'm sure Mommy Julia still loves us. The following week, Daniel started to get really sick. A bad cough, high fever, difficulty breathing. At the doctor's, the diagnosis was a punch to John's gut. Pneumonia. He'll have to be hospitalized. His lung is quite compromised. At the hospital, Daniel's condition worsened. The fever wouldn't break, and he started to become delirious. Mommy Julia! Where's Mommy Julia? He would call out, his voice weak. Son, Daddy's here, John would say, holding his small, warm hand. I want Mommy Julia. She used to sing to me. Daniel, she can't come. Why? Doesn't she like me anymore? John didn't know what to say, watching his son fade before his eyes. Doctor, is he going to be okay? He asked the doctor, desperate. We're doing everything we can, but he's very weak. Sometimes children respond better to treatment when the person they're asking for is present. What do you mean? He won't stop calling for this Mommy Julia. Would it be possible to bring her here? It's complicated. Mr. Davenport, your son's life may be at risk. If there's anyone in the world who can give him the strength to fight, perhaps it's time to set your pride aside. John left the room, desperate. He called his father. Dad, Daniel is very sick. He's only calling for Julia. And you're thinking of calling her? Gerald's voice was pure venom. I don't know what to do. The doctor said he could die. Jonathan, don't do it. But what if Daniel? What if he doesn't get better, Dad? How will I ever forgive myself? Gerald became nervous. If John called Julia, his whole plan would go down the drain. Son, you're desperate. You're not thinking straight. Maybe this is the first time in months that I'm thinking with my heart. John hung up. Standing in front of the hospital, he made a decision. Back in the room, Daniel seemed even worse, almost unconscious. "Mommy, Julia, please, come back." John couldn't take it anymore. He left the hospital and drove like a madman to the south side. There was no pride left, only the terrifying fear of losing his son. He knocked on the door. Mrs. Peterson answered. "John, what are you doing here?" "Mrs. Peterson, I need to talk to Julia. It's urgent. She's not here. She went to work." "Where?" "At Mrs. Carmen's house in the gardens." John got the address and sped off. At Mrs. Carmen's house, Julia was cleaning when her employer called her. "Julia, there's a man here who wants to talk to you." Julia went to the door, and her heart stopped. "John, what are you doing here?" "Julia, I know you hate me, but please listen to me. Daniel is very sick." "Daniel? What happened to him?" "Severe pneumonia. He's hospitalized and he's only calling for you." Julia turned pale. Is he okay?" "No. The doctor said he could die." She didn't hesitate for a second. "Take me to the hospital now." You'll go?" "After everything?" John asked, surprised. "I love that boy more than my own life, John. Of course I'll go." Mrs. Carmen appeared at the door. "Julia, you can go. I'll let you off, and I won't dock your pay." In the car, the silence was heavy. "How did he get sick?" Julia asked. "I don't know. He's been very sad. He stopped eating, playing." "Sad? Why?" John looked at her, his eyes full of guilt. "Because of you. He hasn't stopped asking about you for a single day." Julia felt her heart tighten, and her hand instinctively went to her belly, where her 4-month-old secret was growing. At the hospital, Julia ran to the room. The sight broke her heart. Daniel was pale, connected to several machines. "My God, Daniel!" She took his small, warm hand. "Daniel, my love, it's Mommy Julia. I'm here." Slowly, the boy's eyes opened. "Mommy? Julia? You came back?" "I came back, yes, my prince. And I'm not leaving here until you're better." "I thought you didn't like me anymore," he whispered. Julia swallowed her tears. "How could you ever think such a thing? I love you more than anything in the world." "Then why did you leave?" "It was a grown-up problem, my love, but that doesn't matter now." Daniel smiled, the first smile in weeks. "Are you going to stay here?" "Yes, I am. They'll have to drag me out of here." From the doorway, John watched the scene. In 5 minutes, Julia had achieved what the doctors couldn't in days. Daniel was responding. "Mommy Julia, sing me that song I like." "Of course, my love." Julia began to sing a lullaby softly, and Daniel relaxed, falling asleep without any delirium. The doctor came in and was impressed. "Wow, his vital signs have improved a lot." "Doctor, is he going to be okay?" Julia asked, hopeful. "If he continues like this, yes, he will." "What did you do?" "Mommy Julia arrived," John replied, his voice choked with emotion. "Well then," said the doctor, "I think she'll have to stick around at least until he recovers." Julia spent the night by the bed, singing, telling stories, just holding Daniel's hand. John sat in the armchair watching her. He saw the true love with which she cared for his son. How could a person who loves so much have stolen anything, he thought, doubt beginning to eat away at his father's lies. On the second day, Daniel was already visibly better. He played with Julia, laughed, ate properly. "Mommy Julia, why did you and my dad fight?" he asked, as direct as only a child can be. Julia looked at John. "It's complicated, my love. But you love each other, right? I know you do. I can see it in your eyes." They both turned red. "Son, it's not that simple," John tried to explain. "Why not? If you love each other, you get married and that's it. Because some things happened." "What things?" "Things you wouldn't understand." Daniel got serious. "Dad, can I tell you a secret?" "What secret? Can it be in front of Mommy Julia?" "It can. I know that Grandpa lied about her." John tensed up. What do you mean, Daniel? I heard him on the phone. He was saying that Mommy Julia was a thief, but then he said, it's not a lie. Well, it's not a complete lie. John felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Are you sure of what you heard? I am, and I recorded it. You recorded it? Daniel took out his phone. Want to listen? John took the device with a trembling hand. He listened to the recording, and his face went from confusion to shock, and finally to a cold fury. My God! Daniel, when was this? Right after Mommy Julia left. Julia, who had heard everything, was paralyzed. So, it was all a setup. Julia, John didn't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, John. I know you believed your father. He's your family. But I should have trusted you, in you. John, let it go. The important thing now is Daniel. No, I'm not going to let it go. He took her hand. Forgive me. I was an idiot. Please, Julia, forgive me. I love you. Julia looked into his eyes and saw the sincerity there. I love you too, John. I never stopped loving you. So, are you getting back together? Daniel asked, excited. Son, it's complicated. No, it's not. You love each other. I love you, that's it, he said, settling the matter. Julia laughed. If only it were that simple. It is simple, Mommy Julia, marry my dad. She turned even redder. Daniel, Dad, ask her to marry you. Come on. John looked at Julia, his heart pounding. Julia, will you marry me? John, are you asking because Daniel told you to? No. I'm asking because I love you more than anything, and I don't want to spend another day of my life without you. Julia hesitated. There was so much to be said. John, I need to tell you something. What is it? She took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. John was paralyzed. Pregnant is for 4 months. The baby is yours. Daniel jumped on the bed. I'm going to have a little brother. Yes, you are, my love. John was still processing the information. Why? Why didn't you tell me? Because you hated me, John, and you would have thought it was another lie to get money. Julia. He took her hand and brought it to his lips. Forgive me for everything, for every doubt, for all the suffering I caused you. Forgive me, too, for hiding the pregnancy. They kissed, a kiss that sealed the end of the pain and the beginning of everything. Daniel clapped his hands. Now we're talking. I'm going to have a dad, a mom, and a little brother. The next day, Daniel was discharged. On the way out of the hospital, John made a decision. Julia, let's go to my house. I need to settle things with my father. John, I don't know if that's a good idea. Yes, it is. He has to answer for what he did. Dad, is Grandpa going to be mad? Daniel asked. Yes, he is, son. But sometimes we have to confront the people who do bad things. At the mansion, Gerald was in his office when he heard the car arrive. He went out to greet his son and froze when he saw John walking in, holding hands with Julia and Daniel beside them. What is the meaning of this? What is this woman doing in my house? Dad, we need to talk. I have nothing to talk about in front of her. Yes, you do. A lot. John led Julia and Daniel to the living room. Gerald followed them, irritated. Jonathan, have you gone mad? After everything this woman has done? Dad, sit down and listen to me. I'm not listening to anything. Daniel approached his grandfather. Grandpa, I want you to hear something interesting. What is it, my grandson? The boy turned on his phone, and the recording echoed through the room. Gerald's voice, clear and unmistakable. Spread the word to everyone. It's not a lie. Well, it's not a complete lie. Gerald turned as pale as a ghost. Daniel, where did you get that? I recorded you on the phone. Dad, John said, his voice as hard as steel. Explain this recording. I can explain. Then explain. Explain how it wasn't a complete lie. Gerald was speechless. You set Julia up to look like a thief. Jonathan, I did it for your own good. For my good? John exploded. "You destroyed an innocent person's life. She's no good. She's a gold digger. Gold digger. Dad, she's 4 months pregnant and never came to me. If she were a gold digger, she wouldn't have hidden it." Gerald was shocked. "Pregnant?" "Yes, and even so, she didn't come after me." "Jonathan, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand. You lied, manipulated, destroyed our happiness because of your disgusting prejudice." "It wasn't prejudice. It was protection." "Protection from what?" "From a woman who loves our Daniel more than her own life." Gerald looked at Julia, who had been silent until then. "And you? Aren't you going to say anything?" Julia stood up, her dignity enveloping her like a cloak. "Yes, I am. You humiliated me, persecuted me, spread lies about me, and nearly starved me. And you know what? I forgive you." Gerald was stunned. "You forgive me?" "I do, because holding on to anger only hurts the person who feels it. And I want to be happy with my family." "Dad," John said, his voice firm, "from today on, things are going to be different." "What do you mean?" "Julia will be my wife, the mother of my children, and you will respect her." "And if I don't accept?" John looked deep into his father's eyes. "Then you lost a son today, and you will spend the rest of your life alone." Gerald fell silent, knowing he had lost the battle. His web of manipulation had been unraveled, and now he would have to live with the consequences. John hugged Julia and Daniel. "Let's get out of here. We have a wedding to plan." A month after the confrontation, life felt like a dream. The wedding would be simple, just as Julia wanted. The ceremony would take place in a small church filled with white flowers. Julia was radiant, her 6-month belly evident in her elegant dress. At the church entrance, John waited, nervousness written all over his face. Daniel, by his side, held his phone in his pocket, just in case. The music began, and Julia walked in, arm in arm with Mrs. Peterson. She was beautiful, emotional. The ceremony was proceeding smoothly until the church doors burst open with a bang. It was Gerald, accompanied by 2 security guards. "This ceremony cannot continue," he shouted. The guests turned, shocked. "Dad, what are you doing?" John growled. "Saving you from a terrible mistake. This woman is a fraud." "Get out of here now." "I will not." "This woman has a police record," he announced to everyone. Murmurs spread through the church. "She's been arrested for theft. I have the documents right here." He showed some papers to the priest. "That's a lie," John shouted. It was then that Daniel, the little hero of the story, stepped onto the altar. "Grandpa, you're a liar," he said, his childish voice echoing in the silence. "Daniel, get down from there," Gerald ordered. "I will not. You're making all of this up." "How do you know, kid?" "Because I recorded you planning these lies." Daniel took out his phone and turned the volume all the way up. Gerald's voice filled the church. "If you can't find anything on her, make something up. It's not the first time we've done this." The guests' shock was palpable. Gerald tried to deny it, but Daniel continued to play the recordings. Julia, with tears in her eyes, but her head held high, stood up. "Now, everyone can see who the liar is here." "Dad," said John, disappointment and anger mixed together. "You've embarrassed me for the last time. You are no longer welcome in my life." Gerald looked around, seeing only contempt on the faces staring back at him. He left the church humiliated, defeated, and finally alone. The priest, who had watched everything, smiled. "Well, now that the truth has come to light, shall we continue?" "Yes, we can, Father," Julia replied, beaming. And so, to the emotional applause of everyone, John and Julia became husband and wife. 2 years later, the garden of the Davenport mansion, now a happier and more welcoming place, was filled with laughter. Julia, holding little 2-year-old Sophia in her arms, watched Daniel, now 10, play with his little sister. With the settlement money Gerald was forced to pay, And with John's support, Julia had transformed part of the mansion into a community daycare, the Hope Foundation. "Who would have thought," said John, embracing his family, "that a crazy test dressed up as a beggar would change our lives forever?" "It was the best test you ever did," Julia replied. "You found my heart. And I found out that real family is about loving and protecting each other," Daniel added, wise beyond his years. As the sun set, the Davenport family hugged, the painful past finally overcome, the future shining bright with love and hope. And what about you? What did you think of this story? Do you believe Gerald got what he deserved? And Julia, was she right to forgive? Tell me in the comments what you would do in their place. Until the next story.